Happy Halloween! I wish I could say I was happy. I have spent the last 2 hours trying to film this video because my camera keeps messing up. So if it goes out of focus, screw it, I am keeping it that way because I am really quite irritated right now. So I thought I'd come in cosplay, because why not? Comic-Con is soon, so another excuse. This is the Joker, but I am wearing my Riddler cosplay because they're pretty much the same anyway. Minus the blue braces, which are for my Mal Bell cosplay. And yeah. So I'm going to take this waistcoat off now because I've been wearing it for the last 3 hours. So I have 8 books that are for you. So I'm going to get on talking about them. I'm going to try and do it in short. I'm going to try and sum up the story. I'm going to rate them if I have, because I don't want to mess up a reading if I don't remember it. Right, my first one is a child's book, but to quote someone, a children's book that cannot be enjoyed by adults is not a very good children's book at all, which I think is very true. So my first book is the Graveyard Book. This is about young nobody who is raised in a graveyard by ghosts and his guardian, which I think is a vampire. It's probably a vampire. And a hellhound teacher. Why not? So, young nobody ends up in a graveyard once his family is killed by a maniac. Wasn't me. Yeah. But he is raised in the safety of the graveyard. As young nobody grows older, he wishes to explore the outside world, which is a bad idea, because the maniac is still out there, hunting the boy, ready to kill. His parents, which are ghosts, obviously, do not wish him to go and leave. Young nobody is stubborn. He convinces his guardian to let him go to school when he's about 8, I think. Things get out of hand and he ends up having to come back to the graveyard. Things are not always what they seem. When he's 5, he meets this girl, same age, actually human, and, well, pretty much alive. So, they become friends until she has to move away. Nobody gets really upset at the fact he has no friends that are his own age and are alive. Nobody has the freedom of the graveyard, which means he can go anywhere at any time whenever the hell he wants. He has special powers which allow him to do so. This maniac, although unfortunately, does track him to the graveyard. Things get a little bit crazy. I'm going to leave that there and allow you to either pick up the book or not. I rated it a 4 out of 5. My next book, I have rated it on Tumblr. I had just got quite a few notes for my blog. I actually got a thank you from the author as well for the review. So, without further ado, 13 Chairs. I can't sum up the whole book because there are 14 stories in it. 1 main one and 13 others, which are to do with the main one, but yeah, not really. So, young Jack is a curious boy. Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. He goes to this house on one day it is haunted. He walks up to the door and finds a glowing light underneath. He walks through and finds something he did not expect. 12 strangers around the table, seated of course, holding a candle. He decides to join them, taking the 13th, my apologies, chair, and the 13th candle. There is one simple thing they must do. Each person must tell a story. Once they have done so, they sit back in their chair, blow out their candle, push their chair back into the darkness. Jack does not know what really to expect in this house or from these stories but what happens, definitely not what he had in mind. I rated this book 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. It read brilliantly. I did not struggle to get interested in the first chapter, which is something I personally really struggle with. So, take a breath. The only reason it did not get a 5 is because I managed to predict the ending about a quarter of the way through. I have read a lot of horror, a lot of thrillers, a lot of fantasy, that kind of, yeah. Which means I am quite good at predicting the end. Same with horror movies, which can be a slight issue. I'm going to put that to the side while I continue this. However, I should probably raise that to about a 4.5. Just because I predicted the end doesn't mean it's a bad book. In fact, it's absolutely brilliant and I would highly recommend it. If you were going to pick one book to read, that should be it. The next two are a main book and a sequel. I call the first book a main book because without the first book there wouldn't be a second book. Yes. There's a fire underneath me that's not underneath me. I have a log burner which is going out. I'm trying to keep an eye on it, which isn't really working. So, Asylum and Sanctum, there is a third book called Catacombs. I have not read, I have not bought it, so I will not include it in a review because why would I review something I haven't read? But I'm letting you know there is a third book. It has just been released at around about the 8th or the 6th of October. So, young Dan, Jordan and Abby join this summer project at New Hampshire College. Part of the college used to be an old asylum. That part is closed off because it's not safe for students, which, yeah, well, most of it's open, some of it's shut off. For a really, really good reason. Some students, like myself, don't really obey the rules exactly. We like to push and bend and see what we can do. There are photographs appearing in students' bedrooms. Creepy old photographs of the asylum. There is also a creepy basement which is locked off. If you were told not to go down the creepy basement and you find it unlocked, what are you going to do? Some people would say walk past it and tell someone to lock it up. Others would go and peek in it. Big mistake. Things get creepier down that basement. There are actual found photographs, let's put the first one in front, of things in this book. So, oops, like so. I don't know if you can see, it might be too dark, which so I apologise. At the back here. It does come with a warning. Warning contains disturbing real found images. I'm only going to say this, may seem a little bit stupid to some people. Before you buy the book, do not buy it online, unless you don't get triggered. If you get triggered, try and find it in a library or a bookshop and flick through a few chapters. Just flick through with your hand and see if anything in there catches your eye in a bad way. If you feel it is going to be triggering, do not read it. I'm only saying that because I read this book before, which is not horror or anything, which I found a little bit triggering, and I wrote that in my review, and I got a few private thank yous for saying it contains triggering things. So I want you to be safe, I want you to be happy, and I want you to enjoy reading. So that is my warning. If you get a bit creeped out, don't buy it. My next two are again a main and a sequel, again containing creepy images. I don't think this book needs an introduction. This has been everywhere. I've seen it all over my blog, over my Tumblr, which is my blog, my Twitter and my Facebook. I don't go on Facebook that much, which means it's a pretty big deal if it's over my Facebook. And Hollow City. Again, there is a third book called Library of Souls. I have not got it, I have not bought it, I have not read it, which means I am not going to include it in the review, but it is there in case you wish to read it. Jacob's grandfather tells him stories about an orphanage he used to live in with creepy, creepy children that were a little bit peculiar. If you say peculiar, you think they mean strange. These are peculiar in a stranger sense. These children each have talents or powers or whatever you wish to call them. Like a boy who has bees coming out of his mouth, a girl that can levitate, and a girl called Emma who can make fire with her hands. Emma used to have a fling with Jacob's grandfather. So when Jacob's grandfather is murdered by a monster, no one wishes to believe him, because who are you going to believe if you say, "Help! Grandfather's dead. He was killed by a weird monster with tentacles coming out their mouth." Everyone thinks he's insane. He's shipped off to a psychiatrist, who then tells his dad that he should take Jacob to see this mysterious island, an orphanage, so he can make sense of the stories for himself, which will help him heal. Okay, so he goes to this island, sees the orphanage. Oh dear, it's been bombed in the Second World War. So he goes to explore, to see if there's any weird photographs or letters that he can find that will link to his grandfather's letters. It's just so he can tell himself that the stories are real or not. Until he meets Emma, who should be round about the same age as his grandfather. No. Actually, she's closest to Jacob's age. How is that possible? He starts freaking, being like, "Well, you had a fling with my grandfather, yet you're my age. How is this possible?" So I'm going to put them down because they're quite heavy. He goes through a loop, which is a time loop. He ends up in 1940s, in the middle of the Second World War. Jacob knows this house gets bombed. He starts freaking. "Well, I'm in the middle of war, this house gets bombed, I'm in this house." He finds the headmistress, who obviously looked after his grandfather for a bit. Finds out a few home truths, secrets, etc. He then has to help the headmistress and the children. Now, to reset the loop, because in one day, that's where they live in a time of a day. They have to go out when the bombs are hitting, and the loop resets just before the orphanage gets bombed. So all the children are used to these bombs falling around them just to reset the loop. Jacob is not, which I find is a little bit funny. He has to help the headmistress and the children escape from these monsters. The second book, Jacob is needed more than ever. That's all I can really say without spoiling what happens in the first book. Fires anyhow. My next two books are adult horror, which may not be suitable for younger readers. Yeah. They are by the King of Horror, Stephen King. Come on, you gotta read at least one of his books, make up your mind. My first book is Carrie, which I think was his first book. It don't say. But Carrie White has a gift, the gift of telekinesis. To be invited to prom night by Tommy Ross is a dream come true for Carrie. The first step towards social acceptance by her high school colleagues. But events will take her to Cyberloop morbid turn on that horrifying and endless night as she is forced to exercise her terrible gift on the town that mocks her and loathes her. If you are not used to Stephen King's writing, you may find this a little bit hard to read in the first few chapters. My friend tried reading Under the Dome and says she struggled with the first few chapters, but once she started to get used to his writing, she found it really easy to read and much more enjoyable. So if you don't enjoy it within the first few chapters, I would recommend trying to stick it out, unless you really, really hate it. But I really enjoy Stephen King, he's one of my favourite authors. This I found a little bit more difficult to read than his other writing, because it's set out in different formats. So some of it's like first person, third person, Some of it's like newspaper articles and some of it's are like interviews, so it's like question and answers. It's a little bit weird. Perfect for Halloween. My next book is the first ever Stephen King book I read. I was 12 years old, which is probably a little young. But, hey. There is a movie of Carrie if you want to see that, but I haven't seen it, so I can't say anything. Sometimes watching the movie can help you understand a little bit of the book. Obviously, the movie is never as good as the book. But you can compare them to yourself. But The Shining. So, Danny is only 5 years old, but in the words of Mr. Halloran, he is a shiner, aglow with psychic voltage. When his father becomes caretaker of the Overlook Hotel, Danny's vision grows out of control. As winter closes in and blizzards cut them off, the hotel seems to develop a life of its own. It's meant to be empty, so who is the lady in room 217? And who are the masked guests going up and down in the elevator? And why do the hedges shaped like animals seem so alive? Somewhere, somehow, there is an evil force in the hotel, and that too is beginning to shine. This is arguably one of Stephen King's best known books, as well as Carrie, which is kind of why I chose them. This, again, if you're not used to Stephen King's writing, is going to be a little bit difficult within the first few chapters. At 12, I didn't really understand it too much, so I watched the movie to understand the basic storyline. A little known secret? The movie is crap. Not even in, like, compared to the book, it's just crap. Stephen King hated it, I think most people don't like it. So a little bit all over the place. But like me at the moment. But read the book, it's definitely worth it. You can't really say that much. Things start getting a bit creepy. His father starts going a little bit cuckoo. And I haven't read it in a few years, so the fact I still remember it at 19 years old is probably just a sign of how good this book really is. I had 2 copies and I gave my other copy away just so that person would read it, which they haven't. You know who you are. But they are my 8 books. I'm going to try and wrap this up now. On Halloween, I say read them books anytime you like, but who doesn't enjoy a special scary Halloween book? I haven't included any classics because I think people mostly know about Dracula, Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, all them kind of books. You can find them out for yourselves. They are pretty much included in every Halloween reading book list. I did create a book list last year and a book list this year. I will try and find the link and post it down below. I'm going to wrap this video up now, so either give it a like, a comment or a dislike if you really want. But up to you. You can comment, you can follow me on my blog, which is Beauty of Books, but the O's in the books are zeros because I'm weird. Yeah, so I'm going to wrap that up. Happy reading and happy Halloween. Stay safe, stay healthy and don't eat too much candy, although you may want to. Also, check out around you. I have seen some stories about people handing out dodgy candy. So don't eat anything unwrapped. If it's unwrapped or the wrapping is damaged, be safe and throw it away. Don't even give it to animals, because you would be an arse. And anything that you are not sure about, throw away. Just to be safe. I know some people can be a bit weird on Halloween. Don't send screamers. Don't freak out old people or young children. And don't be an arsehole to anyone who's got paranoia, anxiety, etc. And if any of your friends don't want to do anything, don't get angry at them. I think that pretty much sums up Halloween. So I'm going to say goodbye from me. Adios. Happy reading. Me again. I thought I'd give this last part because I felt really bad. Hugo here was part of my videos for the last 6 times I tried to film it. Sorry, buddy. But the lighting was over there was better, and I actually had my fireplace to balance it up. So Hugo had to become an extra bit at the end of the video. Me and Hugo get on well, don't worry about it. I need to kick the table. He moves. Ow. Caught my nose ring, mate. The waves. Come on. So from me and Hugo, happy Halloween.